I never thought I'd see my parents again, let alone from 30 stories up. Yet here I am, watching them through my building's security feed as they pace the marble lobby below, looking smaller than I remember. Mom is wringing her hands, that nervous habit she always had when asking for money. Dad is still wearing that old brown jacket, the one he claimed was perfectly good, even as he bought my cousin Andrea designer clothes. My phone buzzes again. Another message from the front desk. Miss Sullivan, your parents are quite insistent about seeing you. They say it's an emergency. Should we escort them out? I set my phone down and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse apartment. From here, I can see most of downtown Seattle, including, ironically, my parents' neighborhood. More specifically, I can see the garage, my old room, where this all began 5 years ago. I was 18 when they gave my bedroom to Andrea. She was my mom's sister's daughter, and apparently, her parents were going through a rough patch. I came home from my part-time job at the local coffee shop to find my things piled in the garage between Dad's tools and our Christmas decorations. Andrea needs a proper room, Mom had explained, not meeting my eyes as she folded my clothes into plastic bins. She's going through so much with her parents' divorce. You understand, don't you, Emma? I didn't understand. Not really, but I'd learned early that disagreeing with my parents only led to lectures about family loyalty and being grateful for what I had. So I nodded, swallowing my protests along with my tears. Besides, Dad added, his voice carrying that false cheerfulness he used when delivering bad news. You're 18 now. An adult, it's time you started contributing to the household. That's how I learned I'd be paying $400 a month to live in our unheated garage. A garage that flooded when it rained, which in Seattle was often, where spiders made their homes in my clothes, and where the wind whistled through cracks in the walls all winter long. You should be grateful, Mom said when I tried to negotiate the rent. Market rate for a room in this area is much higher. Market rate. As if this was a proper rental agreement and not their daughter being displaced for a cousin who spent her days shopping with my mom while I worked 2 jobs to afford my new rent. I remember that first night in the garage, lying on my bed and listening to the sounds of laughter drifting down from what used to be my room. Andrea had convinced my parents to repaint it, something I'd begged to do for years. They chose a soft lavender color, bought new curtains, and even splurged on a desk from Pottery Barn. All while I used milk crates as furniture. But that night changed something in me. As I lay there, shivering under 3 blankets, I made myself a promise. I would never again be in a position where someone could take away my home. Never again would I depend on family who saw me as nothing but a source of income. I had been taking programming classes at the community college, paying for them with my barista job. That night, I decided to turn those classes into a future. While Andrea went to parties and my parents doted on her, I worked morning shifts at the coffee shop, afternoon classes at college, and late nights learning to code in my freezing garage. My parents barely noticed. They were too busy helping Andrea apply to expensive universities, buying her a new laptop for her studies, and consoling her when she didn't get into her first choice school. Meanwhile, I was teaching myself Python and JavaScript, taking online courses, and building my first apps. The garage became my office, my sanctuary, my motivation. Every time I heard Andrea complaining about having to do her own laundry, every time my parents praised her mediocre grades while ignoring my straight A's at community college, every time Mom borrowed my rent money to buy Andrea new clothes, it all just fueled my determination. I started freelancing, building websites for local businesses. My first client was the coffee shop where I worked. The owner, Sarah, had seen me coding during my breaks and asked if I could help modernize their online ordering system. That project led to others, and soon I was making enough to quit my barista job and focus on programming full-time. But success came with new problems. If you're making so much money now, Mom said one evening, cornering me by the washing machine, maybe we should talk about increasing your rent. After all, the garage is quite spacious. I remember standing there, clutching my damp clothes, and feeling something inside me snap. The garage was spacious because it was a garage. It was never meant to be lived in. Just last week, I'd had to throw out my favorite sweater because rats had nested in it. Actually, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was, I won't be needing the garage anymore. I'm moving out. The look on Mom's face would have been comical if it wasn't so infuriating. Moving out, but where will you go? You can't afford an apartment in Seattle. But I could. I've been saving every penny I made that didn't go to rent or college. While they thought I was just playing with computers, I'd built up a decent client base and a solid emergency fund. I'd already signed a lease on a small studio apartment downtown. Emma, don't be ridiculous, Dad said when he heard my plans. You need to think about your future. Living here, you can save money. Besides, family should stick together. Family should stick together. It was almost funny how often they used that phrase, but only when it benefited them. Where was this family loyalty when they'd exiled me to the garage? When they used my rent money to buy Andrea a new iPhone? When they'd forgotten my birthday because they were too busy planning Andrea's graduation party? I moved out the next day. It was easy. I didn't own enough to need a moving truck. Everything I had fit in the back of Sarah's car. She offered to help when she heard my plans, and she was the only one who came to see my new apartment. It's not much, I'd said, embarrassed by the tiny studio with its kitchenette and view of a brick wall. It's yours, Sarah had replied, hugging me. That makes it everything. She was right. That small studio became my launching pad. Without the constant drain of family drama and the physical toll of living in the garage, my work flourished. I landed bigger clients, built more complex systems, and started making a name for myself in Seattle's tech community. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. A major tech company was impressed by an app I developed, a sophisticated project management tool I'd originally built to handle my growing freelance business. They wanted to buy it. The number they offered had more zeros than I'd ever seen in my bank account. I remember sitting in my studio, staring at the offer letter, thinking about that first night in the garage. About all the nights I'd worked until my fingers were too cold to type. About the mornings I had to dry my books because of flooding. About every time my parents had made me feel like a burden while treating my cousin like a princess. I signed the contract. The acquisition came with a job offer, a senior development position with a salary that made my freelance income look like pocket change. Within a year, I'd been promoted twice. My app, now expanded and improved with the company's resources, was being used by businesses worldwide. I bought my penthouse 6 months ago. It takes up the entire top floor of one of Seattle's most prestigious buildings. The view stretches from the Space Needle to Mount Rainier, and yes, all the way to my parents' house. To that garage. My phone buzzes again, pulling me back to the present. Another message from security. Ms. Sullivan, your parents mentioned something about foreclosure. They seem quite distressed. How would you like us to proceed? I looked down at the garage again, barely visible in the distance. 5 years ago, I slept there, paying rent to my own parents while they gave my room to my cousin. 5 years ago, they told me I was foolish for wanting to move out, for thinking I could make it on my own. Now they're in my building's lobby, probably staring up at the penthouse where their daughter lives. The daughter they exiled to the garage, the daughter they said would never make it. I pick up my phone to respond to security, and for a moment, I remember every cold night. Every flood, every spider, every rat. Every time they chose Andrea over me, every time they said family should stick together, but only on their terms. My fingers hover over the phone's keyboard as I consider what to do next. My thumb hovers over the phone for another moment before I make my decision. Please escort them to the private elevator. Security accompaniment required. I set my phone down and walk to my home office, pulling up my laptop. A quick search confirms what I already suspected. My parents' house is indeed in foreclosure. 3 months of missed payments, multiple liens, and a notice of default filed last week. The garage I once called home will be auctioned off, along with the rest of the property, in 30 days. The soft ding of the elevator announces their arrival. I stand in my foyer, arms crossed, as the doors open to reveal my parents flanked by 2 security guards. Mom's eyes are red from crying, and Dad looks like he's aged a decade since I last saw him. They step into my penthouse, and I see the exact moment they realize what their garage-dwelling daughter has achieved. Mom's hand flies to her mouth as she takes in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern art on the walls, the sweeping views of the city. Dad's eyes fix on the sleek furniture, the high-end appliances visible in the kitchen beyond. For a moment, no one speaks. Emma, Mom finally says, her voice wavering. You live here. I own here. I correct her. The entire floor. I nod to the security guards. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll buzz when we're finished. Once we're alone, Dad clears his throat. This is quite a place you have, sweetheart. We had no idea you were so successful. You never asked. I gestured to the living room. Please sit. I assume this isn't a social call. They perch awkwardly on my Italian leather sofa, looking out of place among the carefully curated luxury of my home. Mom's still clutching her worn purse like a lifeline, the same one she carried when telling me I should be grateful for my garage accommodation. We're in trouble. Emma, Dad begins, his voice carrying that false confidence I remember so well. The business has been struggling since COVID, and with the economy the way it is, the house is in foreclosure. I finished for him. 3 months behind on payments, multiple liens, and an auction date set for next month. Did I miss anything? They exchanged surprised looks. How did you? Public records. I sit in the armchair across from them. What I'm more interested in is why you're here. Surely Andrea could help. After all, family helps family, right? Mom flinches at hearing her own words thrown back at her. Andrea, she's not in a position to help right now. She's going through some things. She lost her job. Dad interrupts. The third one this year. She's been living with us since her lease ended, but with our situation. Of course, Andrea's still living off my parents just like she did when they gave her my room. Some things never change. We need $47,000, Mom blurts out. To stop the foreclosure and catch up on the liens, we can pay you back, maybe not all at once, but like you paid back the $12,000 in rent I gave you for living in a rat-infested garage. The words come out sharper than I intended, but I don't regret them. Or maybe like you paid me back for the college fund you used for Andrea's spring break trips. That's not fair, Dad protests, but his voice lacks conviction. We gave you a home. You gave me a garage, I correct him. You gave me spiders and floods and cold nights. You gave me the motivation to make sure I'd never need your help again. So why should I help you now? Mom starts crying, real tears this time, not the manipulative ones I remember from my teenage years. We made mistakes, Emma. We know that now. But we're about to lose everything. Where will we go? Where will Andrea go? The same place I went when I had nothing forward. I stand up and walk to the windows, looking out at the city I now call mine. Do you know what I remember most about living in that garage? Not the cold, not the rats, not even the floods. I remember lying there at night, listening to you all laughing upstairs, knowing I wasn't part of that family anymore. I was just a tenant, a source of income. That's not true, Dad says, but he can't meet my eyes. Really? I turn back to face them. When I moved out, when I started my company, when I sold my first app, did you even notice? Did you ever once call to see how I was doing? Or were you too busy helping Andrea through her latest crisis? The silence that follows is heavy with unspoken acknowledgments. They know I'm right. I have a proposition for you, I say finally, not because you deserve it, but because I want to be better than the examples I had growing up. They lean forward, hope flickering across their faces. I'll pay off the house, I continue, holding up a hand to stop their premature gratitude. But I won't give you the money. Instead, I'll buy the property myself. Market value, which according to recent assessments is $680,000. But that's our home, Mom stammers. Was your home. Now it's about to be the bank's. I'm offering you a chance to walk away with something instead of nothing. I move to my desk and pull out a folder I'd prepared weeks ago when I first noticed the foreclosure filing. You'll get enough to pay off your debts and start fresh somewhere else. Somewhere smaller, more manageable. And where would we live? Dad asks. That's not my problem. The words come out cold, but they need to hear this. Just like it wasn't your problem when I had to figure out how to live in a garage. Just like it wasn't your problem when I had to build my life from nothing. You can do what I did. Adapt, work hard, move forward. What about Andrea? Mom asks, predictably. What about her? She's 30 years old. It's time she learned what I knew at 18, that no one owes you a home, not even family. I slide the folder across the coffee table. The offer's good for 24 hours. After that, I'll let the bank handle it. They stare at the folder like it might bite them. Finally, Dad reaches for it with trembling hands. You've become so hard, Mom whispers. No, I correct her. I've become strong. There's a difference. Being hard is what you did when you put your daughter in a garage and charged her rent. Being strong is what that daughter did to make sure she'd never be treated that way again. I stand up, signaling that our meeting is over. Take the papers home. Read them carefully. My lawyer's contact information is inside if you have questions. But remember, 24 hours. And if we don't sign, Dad asks, clutching the folder. Then you'll have 29 days to find somewhere else to live before the bank auctions the house. I press the button for security. Either way, it's not my problem. Just like I wasn't yours. As the security guards escort them to the elevator, Mom turns back one last time. Emma, please, we're still your parents. No, I say as the elevator doors begin to close. You're just the people who taught me exactly what kind of parent I never want to be. After they're gone, I pour myself a glass of wine and return to the windows. The sun is setting over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere out there, my parents are reading my offer, probably hoping for a miracle, probably calling Andrea to see if she has any other options. But I know what they'll do. They'll sign. Because people like them, people who take and take until there's nothing left, always choose the path of least resistance. They'll take my money, find a smaller place, and probably let Andrea move in with them again. The cycle will continue, just not in my old house. My phone buzzes. A text from Sarah, my old boss from the coffee shop days. Drinks tonight. New promotion to celebrate. I smile, remembering how she helped me move out of that garage, how she gave me my first real programming job, how she believed in me when my own family didn't. Absolutely, I text back. First round's on me. Looking out at the city one last time, I raise my glass in a silent toast to that girl in the garage. The one who refused to break, who turned adversity into ambition, who built an empire from a corner between Christmas decorations and old tools. She did good. My lawyer's call comes exactly 23 hours later. They signed, Michael informs me, his voice professionally neutral. Though your mother added quite a tearful note in the margins about hoping you'll find it in your heart to forgive them someday. I take a sip of my morning coffee, looking out at the Seattle skyline from my downtown office. The note doesn't affect the legality of the document, does it? Not at all. The house is yours. We can begin the transfer process immediately. Good. And the other matter we discussed. The property management company can begin renovations as soon as the current occupants vacate. Your plans to convert the house into a transitional home for young adults aging out of foster care are already in motion. We've secured all necessary permits. A smile tugs at my lips. Perfect. Thank you, Michael. After hanging up, I lean back in my chair, letting the irony sink in. The house that had once exiled me to its garage would soon become a safe haven for others who had nowhere else to go. Each bedroom, including my old one, currently occupied by Andrea, would house a young person pursuing education or career training. The garage would be converted into a computer lab and study space. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. How dare you do this to us? Where am I supposed to go? You're heartless. Andrea. Of course. I block the number without responding and get back to work. I have a company to run, and I've learned that success is the best revenge. But life has a way of bringing things full circle. 3 days later, I'm reviewing code for a new project when my assistant's voice comes through the intercom. Miss Sullivan, there's a young woman here to see you. Says her name is Mia Chen. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's very insistent. The name catches my attention. Mia Chen, the junior developer we hired last month, straight out of a coding boot camp. Her resume had stood out not for its experience, but for its story. Like me, she taught herself programming while working multiple jobs. Unlike me, she'd done it while living in her car. Send her in. Mia enters, clutching her laptop like a shield. She's young, barely 20, and the dark circles under her eyes speak of sleepless nights. Miss Sullivan, I'm sorry to bother you, she begins, her voice trembling slightly. But I need to give my 2 weeks' notice. I raise an eyebrow. Sit down, Mia. Tell me why. She sinks into the chair across from my desk. I can't afford to live in Seattle anymore. My roommate's moving in with her boyfriend, and I can't find anywhere else within my budget. I thought I could make it work, but she trails off, blinking back tears. And where will you go? Back to Spokane, probably. Move in with my aunt. Give up on tech and go back to waitressing. She tries to smile. At least I tried, right? I study her for a moment, remembering another young woman who almost gave up on her dreams. What if I told you I might have a solution? Her eyes widen as I explain the transitional housing program I'm setting up. The renovations will take about 2 months, but after that, you'd have a private room, access to a computer lab, and a supportive community of other young professionals. Rent would be on a sliding scale based on income. But why would you do this? I turn my computer monitor toward her, showing her the architectural plans for the garage conversion. Because 5 years ago, I lived in that garage. My parents made me pay rent to sleep between boxes and tools while they gave my room to my cousin. I promised myself that if I ever had the means, I'd make sure no one else had to choose between their dreams and a place to live. Understanding dawns in her eyes. That's why you hired me. I hired you because you're talented and determined. I'm offering you this opportunity for the same reasons. I slide a brochure across the desk, the one the property management company had just finished designing. Think about it. The choice is yours. After Mia leaves, clutching the brochure like a lifeline, I receive another series of texts, this time from my mother's new number. Andrea's hysterical. She has nowhere to go. Please, Emma, just talk to us. We're staying with your aunt temporarily, but it's so cramped. Why are you being so cruel? I forward the messages to Michael with a brief note. Please remind them that any further contact will be considered harassment. That evening, as I'm leaving the office, I overhear 2 junior developers talking about Mia. Did you hear? She's staying. Apparently, Sullivan's setting up some kind of housing program. Yeah, in her old family home or something. Never knew she came from nothing too. I smiled to myself as I walked to my car. Let them talk. Let the story spread. Let other young people know that success isn't about where you start, but how determined you are to rise. A week later, I stand in front of my old house. My house now, watching as construction crews begin the renovation work. The garage door is open, revealing the space where I once slept. Someone has already cleared out the old Christmas decorations and tools. Soon, this space will house computers, desks, and dreams. A car slows as it passes by, my parents' old Camry. Andrea's in the passenger seat, and she makes sure I see her middle finger before they drive away. I wave pleasantly, then turn back to the construction foreman. How long until the garage is ready? 2 weeks for this space, ma'am. We're prioritizing it like you asked. I nod, remembering cold nights and rat-chewed sweaters. Good. Make it bright. Lots of windows. I want everyone to see what's happening in there. That evening, as I'm getting ready for dinner with Sarah, still my closest friend after all these years, I receive an email from Michael. Your parents' attorney reached out. They want to negotiate about the house. I reminded them that the sale is final and informed them about the property's new zoning designation as a charitable housing facility. They seemed particularly upset about that last part. I archived the email without responding and grabbed my keys. Sarah's waiting at our usual spot, a small wine bar downtown, and her face lights up when I walk in. So, she says as I sit down, I drove by the old house today. Quite a transformation you're planning. Life has a way of coming full circle, I reply, accepting the glass of wine she's already ordered for me. Remember when you helped me move out of that garage? Remember? I still have nightmares about those spiders. She raises her glass. To karma. To karma, I agree, clinking my glass against hers. And to making sure no one else has to live in a garage to chase their dreams. Sarah smiles. You know, when you worked at my coffee shop, I always knew you'd do something amazing. I just didn't expect you to turn your worst experience into someone else's salvation. I look out the window at the Seattle skyline, at the city that had given me both hardship and triumph. Sometimes I say quietly, the best revenge isn't success. It's making sure no one else has to go through what you did. My phone buzzes one last time, another text from my mother. We just want to understand why you're doing this. I block this number too, but I already know they'll never understand. They can't comprehend that their garage-dwelling daughter isn't just successful now. She's powerful enough to turn their cruelty into kindness, their rejection into refuge. And that's a power they can never take away from me again. 6 months later, I stand in what used to be my parents' garage, now transformed into a state-of-the-art computer lab. Gone are the cold concrete floors and spider-infested corners, replaced by warm wooden flooring and walls of windows that flood the space with natural light. Where I once huddled under blankets to stay warm, young developers now sit at sleek workstations, building their futures line by line. Today is the official opening of the Sullivan Tech House, and I'm giving a speech I never thought I'd give. 5 years ago, I slept in this garage. I began looking out at the gathered crowd of residents, media, and tech industry representatives. I paid rent to live between Christmas decorations and power tools, studying coding late into the night because I had nowhere else to go. Today, this space is something different. It's a beginning, not an ending. I gesture to the 6 young people seated in the front row, our first residents, including Mia. These brilliant minds represent what happens when we give talent a chance to grow, when we provide not just shelter, but opportunity. The local news cameras are rolling, and I know my parents might see this. Let them. Let them see what their garage became. Each resident here has their own story. I continue. Their own garage, metaphorically speaking. But now they have something I didn't have. A community that believes in them. Every bedroom in this house, every computer in this lab, every resource we provide is a statement. Your dreams matter. Your future matters. You matter. After the speeches and the ribbon cutting, after the cameras leave and the caterers pack up, I find myself back in the lab. Mia approaches, clutching a framed article from Seattle Tech Weekly. It's from 2 months ago, featuring her first app launch. I wanted you to have this, she says, handing me the frame, because none of it would have happened without you. I look at the article, remembering my own first success. No, Mia, it happened because of you. I just provided the space. Miss Sullivan. It's Thomas, one of our other residents. There's someone here to see you. I turn to find Andrea standing in the doorway, looking smaller and less confident than I remember. She's alone, no sign of my parents. Can we talk? She asks. I consider saying no, but something in her expression stops me. 5 minutes. We walk to what used to be my old bedroom, now a tidy single room decorated in calming blues and grays. Andrea looks around, perhaps remembering the lavender walls she'd been so proud of. I lost another job, she says finally. Mom and Dad, they can't help anymore. They're barely making rent at their new place. I'm not giving you money, Andrea. I know. She sits on the bed, a stranger now in a room that was once stolen from me. I wanted to know what you could teach me, what you learned, how you did all this. I study her face, looking for manipulation, for the old entitlement. Instead, I see something new, desperation tinged with genuine humility. There's a coding boot camp starting next month, I say finally. Intensive full-time. If you're serious, I can connect you with the admissions team. I can't afford. There's a scholarship program, but you'll have to earn it. No one's going to hand you anything here. She nods, and for a moment, I see a glimmer of the cousin I knew before my parents' favoritism poisoned everything. Thank you, Emma. After she leaves, I walk through the house one last time. In the dining room, now a communal study space, 2 residents are debugging code together. In the kitchen, Mia is teaching another resident how to cook while discussing algorithm efficiency. The house rings with the sound of keyboards, laughter, and possibility. My phone buzzes, a text from Sarah. Saw your speech online. Your parents must be losing their minds. I smile, typing back, good. Looking out the window, I can see my penthouse building in the distance, its windows catching the setting sun. The garage that was meant to break me now stands as a monument to resilience. The room that was taken from me now offers shelter to those who need it most. My parents thought they were teaching me about family by making me pay rent to live in their garage. Instead, they taught me how to build something better. A real family, bound not by blood, but by shared dreams and mutual support. As I leave the house, I pause at the garage doorway one last time. The space that once held my shame now holds the future. And that's the best revenge of all.